All right, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to ACFO's webinar now. On est très heureux que vous vous joigniez parmi nous. We've been doing these webinars now to really give out information to you guys. We do realize there's a lot of questions regarding COVID-19, regarding your work rights, what you should be doing, should you be teleworking, should you be returning to work. Actually, our last webinar that we did on COVID-19 is actually posted on our website right now, so feel free to refer to it. We try to keep these within an hour, and really the objective is to answer your questions. Any questions you might have. It doesn't even have to be on COVID-19. You know, at some point, we're going to be talking about performance assessments. If you have any questions on that topic, on any other topic, more than happy to be there. So my name is Danny Richard. I'm happy to be president for ACFO. It's always interesting to interact with you guys. I'm joined here on the webcast by Megan O'Halloran. Maybe we can just pan over to Megan so she can say hi.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone.
That was Megan, and I'm also joined by Mathieu, who's one of our labor relations advisors again. Mathieu, can say hi, Mathieu.
Hi everyone.
Right. So Mathieu and Megan are two of our labor relation advisors that we have at ACFO. So whenever you contact us and you have questions, these are the type of people you can expect to answer your questions. Speaking of which, I'd like to just give you an idea of how we're going to process over the next hour. As I said, the goal here is to answer the questions that you have, but we want to give you time to actually ask those questions. And how we proceed nowadays is by utilizing a website and an app called Slido. And how it works is if you go on slido.com, that's S-L-I-D-O, slido.com, either on their website or download the app, they're going to ask you for a code. And the code you put in is ACFO. ACAF, as you can see on the screen right now on the left side. So you go on the Slido.com, you put in the code, and now you can ask your questions. The good thing about Slido is a couple of things. One, it's very simple to use. It's completely anonymous, and you guys can rank your questions. So you decide which questions you want us to answer first in case we don't get a chance to get to all the questions. So right now we currently have some questions, and thank you for those that have submitted your questions. So the way we'd like to proceed is maybe over the next first 20 minutes, we'll give you an idea or a sense of what does ACFO do for you? What are the services that we offer to members? How do we proceed? What's our process like? That'll give you a chance to ask your questions, and maybe in about 20 minutes or so, we'll start answering the questions that appear on Slido. So that being said, I'll throw it over to Megan so she can start giving you some more information about ACFO. Talk to you guys later.
Actually, I think Matt was going to start.
Oh, sorry, Mathieu, my bad.
That's okay.
Indeed. Thank you, Danny. Thanks for the intro. So as Danny mentioned, we're going to go over a bit of what type of services we provide, how we approach the labor relations issue, and Meg is going to talk a bit as well about the intake process that you may face if you call us. We're not going to spend too much time on this. We know you're here to ask us questions. I'm sure you have many considering what's going on right now, but it's always good to have a bit of an overview to understand what we do and understand the service we provide. So essentially, we want you to be able to contact us for anything, any questions that you may want to have. At the end of the day, we may not be able to answer your question, right? If I know Danny has this anecdote which he loves to give out, where someone called him about family law advice. Now, obviously, we don't have, that's not our mandate to begin with. Also, we just don't have that expertise. But we will do our best to refer you to someone that we know will be able to give you a good service. That being said, with respect to labor relations issues specifically, we'll answer anything that has to do with the interpretation of the collective agreement, for instance, right? I see a couple right now that are on Slido, such as can my boss force me to do shift work? And we'll get back to that a bit later on. How is overtime calculated? What are the maternity and parental leave entitlements? And things like that. We'll deal with obviously pay issues. A lot of you have already contacted us with respect to what's been going on with Phoenix for the past few years. Performance issues is also a big one, right? So if the content of your PMA is not consistent with the ongoing feedback that you've had over the year, that's something we can do. Oftentimes as well, we deal with workplace conflicts. So if you have issues with either your boss or a colleague, these are situations we face on a somewhat daily basis, I guess you could say. We can propose different solutions to this, or how to go through the motions if you want to go through the informal conflict management services, and things like that. We also deal a lot with medical issues, anything that has to do with routine medical appointments, for instance. If you need help with Sun Life or any other LTD application or appeals that need to be made, those are also things we do on a on a daily basis. And they're the kind of services that, if you're going through whatever it is, whatever health problems that you have, the last thing you want to do is have to deal with Sun Life and the constant call you get and the rejections that are oftentimes, in my opinion, not valid, but they do it because they're in the money-making business and not necessarily in the paying out benefits business. But we get to do this on a regular basis. So oftentimes, just by chatting with you on the phone for 15-20 minutes, we can tell right away what's missing in your file. We can deal with the insurance company if you don't want to, and those are the kind of things that make your life easier, and that are also services we gladly provide. Harassment is also a big issue. Mind you, that harassment, the way we deal with harassment is slightly different than a collective agreement issue, for instance, just because of the process that's involved. So anything that is collective agreement related, we can file a grievance, whereas harassment, unless it's based on a discriminatory practice, has to go through the TBS model, which sorry, slightly different. Instead of the union filing a grievance on your behalf, it is the member that has to file a harassment complaint, but we're there, we're behind you, we're holding your hand. If that needs to be filed, we'll obviously work with you in drafting the complaint, and the services we offer are not necessarily different, but the process through which the employee has to go through changes slightly. Obviously, however, and I think Meg will touch this a bit more in how we approach labor relations, but ACFO tends to have a more holistic approach to workplace issues, including harassment, and we'll try to do whatever we can to avoid formal processes to ensure that the workplace environment will be restored, right? Because obviously, if there's a harassment issue, a harassment complaint is not going to solve the issue necessarily. It might just state that that there's a problem, but not necessarily address the cause of that problem. Now, obviously, that being said, sometimes the formal route is required and needs to be followed, and we have no problem doing that either. And finally, I think the last big issue that we commonly see as labor relations advisor are staffing complaints. Oftentimes we get calls from members that are complaining about bad fate in the appointment process, favoritism, or any other issues. So those are also issues that we can help you with, either to simply tell you what your rights are, if you need an opinion as to whether a complaint would be valid or not, or what steps need to be taken and whatnot. But yeah, staffing issues is, I would say, the last main thing of the list that I've just mentioned that still needs to be addressed. But again, if there's something that you have a question about that was not mentioned by me or won't be mentioned by Meg in a minute, don't hesitate. Just pick up the phone, give us a call. There's 7 of us, 6 of us are lawyers, and we're more than happy to help you. And as I said earlier, we may not be able to. What you ask of us may be outside of our mandate, but we will do everything we can to point you in the right direction to assist you and hopefully resolve your issue. So on that note, Meg, I will let you start your section.
Megan, I think you're on mute.
Yeah,
Megan might be
sorry. I wanted to talk to you briefly about the approach that we take to labor relations. So we take a holistic approach. We attempt to resolve conflict at the lowest level and at the earliest opportunity through informal conflict resolution where we can. We know that these situations typically involve ongoing working relationships, and so we encourage the parties to work through their issues early and constructively to preserve the working relationship. This could involve mediation, informal meetings, or the use of informal conflict management systems, ICMS, that Matt mentioned earlier. We hope that all sides will work collaboratively to come to an agreement to ensure the root cause of the problem has been addressed and to avoid it from reoccurring later. We know that some situations, though, require a more traditional, formal, or adversarial approach, and so we certainly are not afraid to go there when we need to. We use that approach if informal conflict resolution fails or if it's just not the appropriate situation. And that results in the use of grievances or formal complaints to protect our members' rights and interests. Regardless of the approach, we pride ourselves in working professionally and collaboratively with our employer counterparts, so labor relations within your departments. In terms of our intake process, I wanted to talk briefly about what you could expect once you reach out to ACFO's labor relations team. In terms of intake, we have a front line of departmental representatives in each department who are available that you can reach out to for general information on ACFO business and for labor relations contact information, though that's also available on our website. Labor relations advisors handle our labor relations matters at ACFO from the point of initial contact through to adjudication or the federal court if the case needs to get there. So you're getting consistency and continuity in the files. You would reach out to us initially, the labor relations team, using our generic email, laborrelations@acfo-acaf.com, and the first available labor relations advisor will get back to you as soon as possible. The labor relations advisor will review your issue with you and speak to you about your concerns, discuss the options available for next steps, give you our advice when you ask for it, and everything between us remains confidential until you ask us to take a step to speak to management. So that's really important. In terms of the services that we offer, we do coaching and we help to prepare our members for the next step in the process. So we would assist you in preparing for informal meetings with management, meetings with an ICMS practitioner, meetings with a harassment complaint investigator. We can provide you with information on the next steps involved in any given process. That may be an investigator for a harassment complaint, an investigation for review of security checks or security clearance, for example. And we can help to guide you in terms of appropriate documents to bring with you, to review, to reference in your materials. Our goal is to help you feel more comfortable and more informed when you're involved in these processes. For informal resolution, our involvement can vary. We can support you by coaching behind the scenes. We can also attend meetings with you to facilitate conversations with the parties or attend with you in meetings as a support person. So in informal discussions with other parties, with supervisors or managers, if you'd like us to be there, in the informal conflict management, the ICMS process. In terms of formal complaints and grievances, we can help you to prepare those forms and organize your materials, and again, guiding you and coaching you through what to expect of the process. We would determine with you who is best placed to argue or present the complaint or the grievance. So if it's the member, then, and that often is the case where it's a PMA grievance, because you're in the best place to know what your performance was in the past year. Then we would provide coaching in terms of what to expect and your presentation that you're making at the grievance hearing. And if the labor relations advisor is presenting the grievance or complaint, then we would make submissions on behalf of our members at those hearings. So I'm going to pass it back to Danny to speak about questions today.
Thank you very much, Megan and Metsier. And that was just giving you a generic overview of the services that we offer at ACFO. I think for me, what's important for you guys to understand is that we're there for you, right? We have a team of experts dedicated to help you with your workplace conflicts. Remember, like these people, if they were in the private sector, they'd be charging $300-400 an hour. And whenever you call us, you have them for free, unlimited. So if your issue needs to have a full week, 2 weeks worth of casework, it's unlimited services for them. So please contact us. If you're not sure, if you're having any workplace issue, or you're just having doubts about how to address with your manager, please contact us. Before I turn over to the questions here, I see again, the questions are on slido.com, and I see we got many questions that came in, which is great. I want to give you an update of what has ACFO done in light of COVID-19. I mean, you know, like I do, this is our 5th week we're going into COVID-19 and self-isolation. We quickly realized right from the get-go that this type of situation is unseen, unheard of, and most departments, although they have activated their business continuity plan, that plan was never designed for this type of crisis. And what I mean by this is for something that will be going on for weeks, if not months at a time. So instead of going department to department, because we have members in over 70 departments, we realized we need to go to the highest instances. What I mean by that is Treasury Board. So I've been in close contact with the Chief Human Resources Officer, Nancy Chawan, the Controller General of Canada, L'Occupé, so that they can give guidelines to the departments of how we're going to deal with this, right? So one of the questions was, what about year end? You know, if our year-end deadlines here, this is not business as usual. So how do we handle this? What do we do? So yes, they have extended the year-end deadlines. And if you ask me, they will be forced to extend them even more because this self-isolation will continue for weeks, if not months. If you listen to Justin Trudeau this morning, that's what he said, of course, for weeks. I'll take the first question. It seems to be a popular question. I'll read the question for you guys. The question asked on Slido is, can we be faced with layoffs as COVID-19 causes slowdown in workloads? And this is a very relevant question. As most of you are teleworking right now, and some of you don't have access to the network, it is difficult to keep up the same pace of productivity that you had when you were actually going to work. And this is something we had to actually, I'm not going to say fight for, but really show our intent to the government to show that we want our members not to be penalized for them not being able to be as productive as they normally would, right? Because you are all, you have the skill set to perform, you have the desire to perform, but unfortunately you're not given the opportunity because you either don't have access to your tools, or you might have your kids that are at work, and that will lead to a decrease in productivity. So to answer the question, let me be clear. No, there will not be any layoffs, not as long as I'm here, simply because we wouldn't allow it to happen. You guys bring valuable work. You add value to the government. So even though this will last a couple of months, what happens when we reactivate the switch and we have to go back to work? All that work that wasn't done will have to be done. And if we start laying off people, then these people would find other jobs. Look, one of the things you have is you're an educated workforce. Even during these difficult times, I'm sure you could find contracts right and left. But because every single union is working together to ensure that if you're not able to work, you are on paid leave, that other paid leave, that code 699. And just for the record, there is no cap on that leave. This situation is impacting every single Canadian, which includes our members. But because we understand the value you guys bring, there would be no reason to start laying off people because there's already a shortage of FIs as there is. To try and then rehire those people would make things much more difficult. I'll throw it over either to Mathieu or Megan for the next question on promotions.
Sure, I'll take it. And before I do, I'd just like to reiterate that both Danny and I speak French, so please feel more than comfortable to send us your question in French, and we'll try to translate a few as we go along. I know we've been English heavy lately, but feel free to send your questions in French. The first questions that we have that's on top right now, using a personal phone, can the employer make it mandatory to use? You'll hear me say this a lot. I mean, after all, I am a lawyer. The answer is it depends. There are a lot of, it's a case-by-case basis, and a lot of it has to do with what use wants to be done with the phone and whatnot. So I'll give you an example. We've had situations where a manager, or a DG rather, wanted to make a unit-wide WhatsApp group with people's personal phone numbers. And there was over 50 or 55 people in the group. Now, obviously, that brings privacy issues forward, and some members were not comfortable with that. And in this situation, I think the advice was, or we got in touch with the DG and we had a short chat, and obviously, not obviously, but unfortunately, we were of the same views, and after discussing it, he backed down. Another example where it might not be appropriate is if the fees that would be incurred on your cell phone, for instance, because you don't have a house phone, would be significant. That would be problematic, but those are things that you should be raising with your manager. Now, obviously, if you call us and you say, you know, I have a house phone, there's no fees incurred, I just don't want to talk to my boss on my personal line, I want to force them to give me a cell phone. Considering the situation we're in right now, it might be a bit more difficult to justify this. So my advice here would be use your common sense. You know, if it doesn't smell right, if something's wrong, if fees are incurred, if there's privacy issues, then I would probably tell you that no, he can't. If it's because you're trying to get out of work or trying to get a free cell phone out of this, it's probably not something that's going to happen. Megan?
Sure, I'll take the next question. Can my boss force me to do shift work? So I'll just answer the hours of work come from the collective agreement. So I'll answer with respect to the FI collective agreement, and if anyone wants specifics in terms of the other collective agreements that are now in play, as a result of the CT group, please feel free to reach out to us, to Labour Relations directly, and then we can provide you with a more specific answer for those. But there's no shift work clauses. There are no shift work clauses in the FI collective agreement, though management can shift an employee's hours within the normal work hours. So that is the employees working 7.5 hours between the hours of 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. An employee can request to shift the workday outside of those hours or can agree to it, but our position would be that the employer cannot impose hours outside of the normal work hours, so 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that the employee would be entitled to overtime for any hours that are imposed on them beyond those normal work hours. So if you're asked to work outside of normal work hours, either on evenings, weekends, or holidays, then you should be entitled to overtime. And if you're not being paid overtime for that time, then please feel free to reach out to us at the Labour Relations email so that we can review the case and we can intervene if necessary.
Thanks, Megan. I just want to reiterate the good point that Mathieu brought up here, which was if something doesn't make sense to you, give us a call, right? I can tell you the easiest part of my job is when a member brings up something that we don't even understand. Like, what? That doesn't seem fair. Why is this happening? Because then, if with your permission, we can escalate this to someone that with common sense would say, well, no, I mean, of course, like, why are we doing this, right? So using your common sense, your common judgment, can allow you to determine, is this fair or not? And if you're not sure, please contact us. If it doesn't make any sense, contact us, because maybe you're facing the issue, but you're not alone. And we've seen this issue many other times during the week. So definitely contact us. Which leads us to the next question. There was a question here that was asking, I'll read the question. Managers keep telling me there's no promotion right now. Is there a real hiring freeze right now? As I see people getting nominated on promotions on jobs.gc.ca. And the answer to that question is no. There is no staffing freeze. There's no hiring freeze. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a significant reduction in staffing. But I can assure you there's no freeze per se. There's nothing preventing a manager that wants to run a competition right now or hire someone. There's nothing preventing them from doing that. However, there might be other priorities right now that makes it so that hiring is not the priority at this given point in time. Perhaps your manager worded it not the right way, saying, well, no one is hiring. And I would argue there's definitely a significant reduction in hiring. However, there's nothing preventing a manager from starting a competition right now, but it might look bad optics because someone might say, why are you running a competition right now when we got critical duties we're trying to perform and we can't even get those done? Mathieu, did you want to take another question?
Sure, I'll take the next one. So if you are home and do not have remote access, is it possible that you might not get paid? The short answer to this is no. If you no, it's not possible that you might not get paid. So if you're unable to get access to the VPN because it's down or you can't access it because there's too many people on it at the same time, that's not a reason for you not to get paid. What you should do, however, is inform your manager as soon as you can and work with him or her to try to resolve this issue. Donc, pour nos membres francophones, la question à laquelle je viens de répondre portait sur la possibilité que les gens ne soient pas payés s'ils ne sont pas capables d'accéder au réseau à partir de la maison. Donc, la réponse est assez facile, assez directe, donc c'est non. Si vous n'êtes pas capable de vous connecter de la maison, ce n'est pas une excuse pour ne pas vous payer. Là, vous devrez être capable d'être couvert sous le congé 699, pardon. Puis, si jamais ça l'arrive, je vous conseillerais de contacter votre superviseur pour essayer de trouver une solution. Donc, Danny?
Mathieu, je vais prendre la prochaine. One of the questions here is, might there be a temporary reduction of hours of work and earnings due to long-term effects of government assistance programs and related internal cost cuttings? So I see where the question is coming from here of, for most of our members, there's only so much work you can do when you're working from home, especially if you don't have access to the right tools, the printers, the network. So most of you, I suspect, will see an increased usage of that other paid leave of 699. But in terms of reducing the hours, no. It would be an easy way for the government to cut costs by saying, well, you know what, if half of your time is 699, we're going to pay you that leave up until the end of April, but then in May, you're on your own. We're going to reduce your hours. You're not going to be 37.5, you're going to be 20 hours a week now. I can assure you that not only ACFO, but every single other union would fight against this simply because it doesn't make sense. In a time of crisis, laying off all these people, what would happen if they reduce the hours? Then you would apply for another government plan, right? So I want to reassure you, because I see there's a few questions on this. Your salaries are protected because you are able, you want to work, you desire to work, you have the skills to work, but you're unable to do so because the government is focusing on other more critical duties. If anyone is mentioning a potential reduction of your hours or a cap on the other paid leave, please contact us. Je vais aussi prendre une question en français parce que j'ai vu qu'il y avait deux questions en français sur le remboursement des frais. Par exemple, il y a quelqu'un qui a dit j'ai encouru des frais excédentaires pour mon plan de cellulaire parce que j'ai des minutes. Et quelqu'un d'autre aussi qui a dit j'ai un clavier et une souris ergonomique à mon travail, est-ce que je vais être remboursé? Donc, pour l'équipement, le remboursement de l'équipement, si vous allez sur notre site web présentement, le bureau chef des ressources humaines a émis une politique là-dessus. Puis, il y a des critères à respecter. Fait que présentement, le remboursement de l'équipement personnel, on commence par les personnes qui sont critiques, dédiées à essentiel, les personnes critiques. C'est eux qui vont commencer le remboursement. Par la suite, on va rembourser les gens qui avaient des demandes d'accommodement. Donc, les gens là, qui ont vraiment une note du médecin qui dit « j'ai besoin d'avoir ça ». Et pour tout le reste de nos membres, disons qu'effectivement, vous aviez un clavier ergonomique, là, un clavier que vous pouvez utiliser, ou une souris, ou une chaise, ayez une discussion avec vos gestionnaires. Cette discussion-là est importante parce que c'est eux ont l'autorité, ont le pouvoir de vous rembourser. Maintenant, si jamais quelqu'un refuse de vous rembourser votre souris ergonomique ou une imprimante ou peu importe l'outil que vous avez besoin de faire votre travail, et on vous dit ben non parce que c'est juste temporaire, ou on vous dit non pour n'importe quelle raison, mais selon vous, ça a du bon sens parce que vous l'aviez à votre poste de travail au bureau. Communiquez avec nous. Je ne dis pas qu'on va changer la décision, mais on peut vous aider à décider, OK, ça a-tu du bon sens? Est-ce que c'est rendu déraisonnable? Est-ce que vous avez un bon dossier pour qu'on puisse escalader la situation? Même chose pour les minutes. Si vous avez dû dépenser votre plan de cellulaire à cause que vous avez plein de rencontres téléphoniques, et demandez pour le remboursement. Si votre gestionnaire refuse, laissez-nous savoir. Une chose qui est clé dans tout ça, c'est ayez beaucoup de transparence et tentez le plus que possible de faire une demande pré-approuvée. Donc, avant d'aller acheter votre souris ergonomique, demandez à votre gestionnaire. Mais je vous rappelle, si on vous dit non et pour vous, ça n'a vraiment aucun bon sens, laissez-nous savoir les résistances que vous avez. Ça me fait plaisir de vous aider sans même communiquer à l'employeur. On peut juste vous guider avec votre courriel. Megan, over to you.
Sure, I'll take the next question. Are you aware of any delays we could face in regard to reimbursement of CPA fees? So I don't believe we've been contacted by the employer in terms of formally advising us that there will be a delay of such and such period, but I think it's reasonable that we can expect there may be some delays just in terms of people, only critical services having access to networks, for example, at this time. And so we would recommend, as usual, that once you incur the payment, that you submit proof of payment to the employer, so to your manager, and we can expect there will probably be some delays, although we don't have a sense of a time frame, just because of those people in the critical positions and being stretched right now. I guess that's all I can say at this point.
Thanks, Megan. Maybe I'll take this one on conflict, and Mathieu, you can do the one on holidays, planned holidays afterwards. I believe I understand the question here. The question is, as most of our direct reports are FIs and ACFO represents all of us, do you have a conflict? So I believe the question here is, for example, if I am an FI3 and I have FI2s that report to me, and my FI2 files, for example, a staffing complaint or a harassment complaint that I was involved with would ACFO represent both the FI2 and the FI3? It depends on the circumstance. So what you need to know is whenever someone contacts ACFO for a certain issue, it wouldn't be the same person taking both ends of the case. So for example, the FI2 would have their own labor relations advisor and the FI3 would have a different labor relations advisor. So we make sure it's two separate people taking care of the file. Moreover, typically when you have an issue, you call an ACFO when you have an issue with your coworkers, your boss, but not with your employees. So if I manage a team, for example, of 5 FI1s, and I have issues as a manager with my employees, I wouldn't contact ACFO for that one. So for example, if I have to give someone a performance review and the employee I'm giving the performance review to is not reacting well, they're becoming aggressive, it's best to contact labor relations. So when you're acting as a manager, you contact labor relations on the employer side, so the HR from your department. You contact ACFO when you're on the employee side with your coworkers or your bosses, and then you would contact ACFO. Mathieu, I'll throw it over to you and feel free to correct anything if I said wrong there, and then you can answer the lead question.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Just more on a practical standpoint, as Danny mentioned, we are quite aware of the possibility of conflict, and we do put firewalls between individuals in the office. For instance, right now we have a situation where 5 LRAs are dealing with a workplace issues with 5 different members, and I'm unable to speak about this file specifically with the other 4 labor relations advisors in the office. These are just steps or precautions we take to ensure that there's no conflict and that confidentiality is maintained throughout the entire process. Now, if we move on to the next one, if I had a holiday plan before the pandemic, can I cancel it? Short answer is yes. So if you have a holiday next week and you want to cancel it because flights to Spain are canceled, that's fine. what some people have tried, though, and they were unsuccessful, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do about it, is if you had a holiday 3 weeks ago, mid-March, and you didn't cancel it then you can't cancel it retroactively, unfortunately. Danny?
Merci beaucoup, Mathieu. I believe I've already addressed the one regarding the year-end dates. So yes, if I had to guess, the year-end dates will most likely be pushed. That comes from the Controller General. But, you know, even if you forget about the year-end deadlines, if your workload right now is becoming unmanageable because your manager or your boss is seeing this as business as usual, and your workload is unsustainable because they're assuming you're producing at the same level, please contact us. There's no reason right now where certain deadlines couldn't be pushed. Even normally deadlines that are firm are being pushed because we are understanding of the situation that it is not business as usual. So if any manager is making you feel as if you have to produce at the same level, definitely please contact us. Megan, was there any question there that's left that you feel we didn't address yet? Megan, you're on mute.
Sorry, everyone. Okay. You said we are to use other paid leave. However, we've been directed not to use it. This is confusing. We've touched on this, but I'll just reiterate, and I'm sorry for muting. I just concerned about background noise with kids. For those who are unable to telework as a result of IT issues, systems issues, those people we would expect to be able to use code 699 leave. For those employees who have no alternate childcare and are not able to telework, either for the full day or a portion of the day when they don't have, they can't arrange for childcare and they're not able to telework, then we expect those employees would be able to use code 699 leave. So if you're able to telework and you have the IT and system ability to telework, then we'd expect those employees to be teleworking and not using 699 leave. But the expectation is that code 699 leave would be available for those other situations.
Thank you, Megan. I'll take this one on critical work. So the question is, I am working remotely, but management has not stated that my position is non-critical. Who or what determines how many workers can be in the office at any time? It's a good question. I'll address the critical one now. We've seen this now that OCRO has issued a statement as to what is defined as critical. If you go on our website right now, it's on our website what defines. But in a nutshell, you're critical if you don't perform your duties, something really bad's going to happen. That's critical in a nutshell. And I can tell you, for most of our members, they would not meet the requirements of that definition. However, we've seen a lot of our members being told they are critical simply because we want to make sure they have access to the network and we want them to perform their duties. Now, if someone is deemed critical and you disagree, for example, if your boss says you're critical, you need to come into work. Well, it's not because you're critical that you have to come into physically to work. You can still remote work if you're able to perform your duties working from home. But if you don't believe you are performing critical duties, you're saying, look, I'm more than willing to help out here, but I don't think my duties are critical. Let us know, right? There's a specific definition that has to be met. But in terms of having to perform your duties, how much leave do you have? It's hard to address these questions because it might be case by case. But at the end of the day, no one knows your duties better than you. And if you feel like something doesn't pass the smell test or it's just not up to snuff, definitely contact us and we'll have a conversation. Mathieu, anything else that you saw in there?
Oui, merci Danny. Donc, la prochaine question, on va y aller avec une petite question en français. Est-il possible d'aller chercher notre chaise ergonomique au bureau pour la porter à la maison? Impossible d'essayer en magasin. Donc, pour ça, j'aimerais stipuler par contre que ça va dépendre de la région dans laquelle vous vous trouvez au pays. Si vous êtes à Montréal, Toronto, ça risque d'être un petit peu plus difficile que si vous êtes à Moose Jaw, par exemple. À ma connaissance, la dernière fois que j'ai répondu à cette question-là, c'était la semaine dernière. C'était encore possible d'aller chercher la chaise ergonomique au bureau. Il fallait seulement faire des arrangements avec le superviseur pour s'assurer qu'il y avait une certaine coordination entre les employés, parce qu'il y avait plusieurs employés qui voulaient aller chercher leur matériel ergonomique. Donc, certainement que c'est possible, mais avant d'y aller, assurez-vous de, un, contacter votre superviseur et de deux, que vous n'êtes pas dans une situation comme à Ottawa, par exemple, où vous habitez à Gatineau, vous travaillez à Ottawa, mais malheureusement, les ponts sont fermés là, en raison de la quarantaine qui a été mise en place par le gouvernement du Québec.
Merci Mathieu. Juste pour renchérir là-dessus, j'ai eu une discussion avec le Conseil du Trésor dernièrement à ce sujet-là, à savoir est-ce que je peux me présenter au bureau. Et ce que tu as dit, et c'est vraiment ça, c'est de s'assurer que oui, vous pouvez vous présenter tant que votre gestionnaire est au courant et tant que vous respectez le protocole, c'est-à-dire que vous avez une station sociale, que vous avez ramassé au bon endroit et que l'employeur l'a mis d'accord. Donc oui, effectivement. I'll take another one on, as a union, do we have any initiatives or support to help others in need? For example, by collecting the donating funds for needed medical supplies. Very good question, and I applaud the initiative here. There's a lot of things at ACFO that we do to support our members and their community, but our focus right now is really on our members. Everyone at ACFO right now is teleworking, so we're trying to maintain the same level of service. There are many measures that we could do to support the community, but because of the resources that we have and because of the lack of physical displacement that we can do, we are focusing all our efforts right now on the members. But if there are any ideas that you have that we could do to be better supporting the community that wouldn't be at that much of a cost, please feel free to give us the ideas. You know, ACFO is an organization of 15 people. We've received great feedback from members on ideas we could do, and that's what we hear. The union is the combination of our members. You guys lead, you elect the board of directors, you elect the president. So whenever you have ideas like this on how we can better support the community, by all means, let us know. But the answer to the question is, for now, no, we are focusing on our members to make sure that we answer their questions, that their jobs are not put in jeopardy. So that's our key priority right now. Just reading the other questions, what would be my rights if I agree to management's request for volunteer to work in another department heavily impacted by COVID-19? That's a good question. I know a lot of departments right now are trying to, so for example, I gave the example of global affairs right now, whose FIs, a lot of their FIs, well, I know some of their FIs, not all, are being deemed critical. So if you're working at a department, for example, like I don't know, Elections Canada or the Public Service Commission or the Canada School, maybe as an FI, your duties aren't being 100% right now. So you could be reassigned to another department. I'll let Mathieu or Megan comment on this one, but I would imagine you would have the same exact rights. You're a substantive employee. You're helping them out, but you wouldn't be giving up any benefits, any salary. You're still employed by that department.
Danny, I can take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so what we've been assured by the employer is that the employees will be entitled to their substantive position and all of the terms and conditions of their employment will continue. So we're seeing people being asked in various departments to help out in other areas that are understaffed or where there's more demand. And we're also seeing various initiatives being rolled out in certain departments to help with the public health initiatives. So in terms of support for contact tracing, for COVID-19. So where employees volunteer to help with those initiatives, we are being told that they are assured their substantive position when they return and all of their terms and conditions of employment continue. Although it's not a bad idea just to get that confirmed in writing with your manager when you are considering those options.
Thank you, Megan. Next question was, where is the line between sick leave, mental issues, stress, and those due to COVID-19 that would allow us to use code 699? Yeah, you know, code 699 has always existed, right? There's always been a provision or collective agreement for any leave you want that the employer could pay for. It just so happens that now it's being used a lot more, and there's still no clear, like 100% clear when to use it, when do you not. Again, we've asked OCRO to issue a communique on this one, which is on our website. So depending on what your situation is, right? So for example, if you are normally able to perform, but you're stressed out because you've got 4 kids at home, you're working out of your condo and you can't perform and it's having an impact, you call the employee helpline. You've realized that you need some time off because now maybe you're sick, you need a couple of days off. We are always trying to prioritize the other paid leave, the 699. But if you are really sick, you could use the sick leave. So I think the best case here is, if depending on what your situation is, contact us and we can then prescribe you with what we think is the best approach to that one. Matt, is there anything else you see on there that you want to take?
Sure. Let's go with the next one. I know a Crown Corp that's giving $500 for employees to put towards equipment to work from home, such as chair, monitors, etc. Is that something we can request? I think Danny partially addressed this question early on in the webinar, but there's no set amount of money for each employees to buy equipment. There's no $500 stipend for you to go buy a chair, for instance. However, if you do need some equipment to work from home, if you need something that's ergonomically required for something, you should definitely raise it with your manager, and it's definitely something that should be taken care of. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis, right? So if you need a monitor to work from home instead of you're constantly working on your laptop, it's very different than trying to buy $2,000 camera, for instance, for something that's not necessarily required for your work. Obviously, I'm using the most extreme examples that come to mind right now just to show the problem, but use common sense. And if you think it is required for you to work from home, contact your manager first, see if you can work it out. In the vast majority of cases, people can work something out with their managers. And if you can't and you still believe it's required, give us a call and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much, Mathieu. And I would add to that one, Crown Corps are really a separate entity. So often there are certain things that we get that Crown Corps do not, and they get that we don't get. So whenever we compare with the Crown, it's really a separate entity. So it's not really like comparing yourself to, PSBC or ESDC. Crown Courts are separate, so we always got to be careful when we compare to those. Megan, before I throw it to you for the last question on timesheets, I'll just take the one on Phoenix. Obviously, Phoenix. The good news is these emergency relief packages, the payments are not going through Phoenix. But if you had a Phoenix issue, the people, the last information I got was last week was Phoenix, the compensation advisors are working as they normally would. So the fact that everyone is taking their 699 leave or working remotely, the compensation advisors are working remotely as well. I would suspect there's maybe a dip in productivity, which will probably impact any Phoenix cases. But the good news is they're still working. So not as if the compensation advisors are shut off completely. So that is good news. Megan, over to you.
Sure, I'll take the next one. My manager asked for updated working schedules for myself and my staff for tracking purposes. What is being tracked and is it required by TBS? So I guess what it seems to be being asked is, I guess maybe an update in terms of hours that are being worked or for hours of work that the employees are intending to work in terms of scheduling. It's within management's right in terms of their day-to-day management of operations to ask for an activity log or a schedule or a breakdown in terms of what hours the employee is working. But what we would say is that the employee shouldn't be singled out. So no particular employee should be preyed upon in terms of keeping those logs while no one else is being asked for them. It sounds like that's not the situation. But if someone feels like they are being singled out and they're the only person that's being asked for that information and the information that they're being asked is not reasonable, then that could be harassment or could be discriminatory. And I would ask those people to reach out to our labor relations team so that we can talk about this particular situation and give you advice. But it may just be for tracking for the management themselves to know when you would be available to attend meetings, to when you would be available for phone calls and things like that. We don't have any information that would be shared with Treasury Board, but if you're concerned about the reason why they're asking the information, you can always ask management why they're asking.
It's a good point, Megan. I remember we had a member ask us this. I feel bad because I'm using more of the 699 leave because I have kids at home. So I have a dip in my productivity while my coworkers are not using as much from what they're telling me. So how is this going to impact me, right? Will I be seen as a bad apple if I'm using more of the 699 leave? And you shouldn't. You know, the 699 leave is there for a reason. And if you feel you're being treated unfairly because of it, definitely get in contact with us. We had a question on, will we be receiving a tax credit working from home for the period of time since we are using basically our own equipment? I like this question. As financial professionals, you're thinking forward here. It really depends, right? Look, the employer right now is taking this day by day. There's a lot of stuff that will need to be answered, but we don't have the answers to. When one could argue, look, I was using all my personal equipment. I did so in good faith, but I'd like to get the equivalent credit. And then it'll depend on situation. Well, did the employer pay for your cell phone? Did they pay for your laptop? So it'll be case by case. I think the question is valid. We unfortunately don't have the answer right now, but it is a question that the employer will need to address. Similarly, someone was asking me, how is reintegration going to work? How are we going to slowly open up the valves? If the employer says come back to work, can I refuse to come to work? So I can tell you that we definitely have made the employer aware of whatever plan they have to reopen or reintegrate the employees. We need to make sure it's done in a safe way and the way that is transparent. So we want to be on board, because one thing that I will give this to TBS, Treasury Board, they're holding every 2 days, they're holding teleconferences with all the unions to keep us apprised of what's the latest and to get our input of what we're hearing on the ground level. So it just reiterates the importance of contacting us when you hear of something, because we can bypass many levels. So if you, as one of our members, you report to one person, but we can bypass 3, 4, 5, we can go straight to the top. Now, don't get me wrong, we wouldn't do so without your approval, but we have that ability should you choose to go down that route. We have another question here on, do we anticipate the vacation payouts to be rescheduled? Yes. So like every past year now, the vacation buyouts, I suspect, will be rescheduled again. This should be a no-brainer. Again, it's not confirmed yet. Let me go see what time it is now. Megan or Mathieu, are there any questions that you guys feel you've received the past couple of weeks that might be worth sharing with our members? Hearing none. Okay. So we're just going to end it there. I see we're getting close to the hour. So I really want to reassure you guys that no one's going to lose their job. I think you all see the value in the work that you do. And by all means, if ever you have questions or concerns, contact us. Today we met Megan and Mathieu, but we have a full team of trained labor relations advisors. This is really all that they do all day long. So although they are teleworking, we still ensure that we can offer the same service, same confidentiality, same measures, and we're happy to answer your questions, because the more feedback, the more questions we get from you guys, the more we identify the trends that then we can go see senior management and say, we're seeing these trends here, and it helps the membership as a whole. So on that, friends, I ask you, please be safe, contact us if you have questions, and thank you very much for joining us today. On se voit bientôt. Bye-bye.